All right, this is the follow-up, and we are following up today on a live video I did last year in 2020 entitled Stuff and Sounds, which featured the great Frank Canino. My guest today on the follow-up is none other but the mighty, mighty Chris Parker himself, drummer of the band Stuff. Chris, welcome to the follow-up. I am thrilled. I'm beside myself. Thank you so much for making yourself available.
Thank you for having me, George. This is a pleasure, my pleasure.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it. For those watching, for those listening, the idea behind the live video, which again featured Frank Canino, was to share my thoughts or my ideas on the band Stuff, which Chris Parker was a part of. Chris was one of the two drummers alongside Steve Gadd. Gordon Edwards on bass, and the two guitar players, Eric Gale and Cornell Dupree. Now, as is,
Get
go ahead.
Richard T.
Oh, sorry, I shouldn't. Yeah, I shouldn't forget Richard T. Oh my God, that's a big one. It is in my excuse, like in my defense, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm having a hard time talking.
Sorry to get you up so early, George. I know you work.
Yes, yeah, but no, it's all good. Of course, Richard T on keyboards. So I thought it would be really interesting to get Chris's perspective and his unique view of the situation. We have heard from Frank Canino and Larry Salzman what it felt like to be in the audience at Mikkel's. Let's find out what it felt like on the podium, right? So, Chris, if you don't mind, take us back into Mikkel's, or maybe even take us a step further. How did your involvement with Stuff started?
Well, to make a long story as short as possible, I was doing dates in New York. I was doing all kinds of recording and stuff, having moved into the city from Woodstock.
Right.
And on a particular date, jingle, I met Gordon Edwards.
Mm.
He was the bass player, and we kind of hit it off. And at the end of the date, which was, I don't know, all of an hour and 20 minutes,
Right.
he said, you sound good, Stuffy. Come up to my club tonight. Come up to my club and sit in.
Wow.
And I said, okay, what's the address? He said, it's 97th and Columbus. And I said, okay, I'll be there. So later that night, I showed up, and there was Gordon and Cornell and Richard T. and a saxophonist, Charlie Brown.
Right.
There was also a vocalist, Esther Marrow. And the gig was backing up Esther Marrow for a couple of tunes and then playing instrumentals with the band. So when I got there, they were on a break.
Right.
And I saw the drum set up, but I didn't see a drummer. I didn't see any other drummers. So they came back to the bandstand, and Gordon spotted me in the audience and said, "You're up, Stuffy." Quote unquote. So I went up, and they played Rainy Night in Georgia, which was a tune that I was familiar with. Brooke Benton and Cornell had played on it. And these guys were my idols. I mean, I had been following their records, Cornell Dupree, and Gordon's playing on different records with Purdy.
Yeah.
And Richard T's playing. He had solo albums out. And they had played with Aretha and with King Curtis. And that was the music I was really shedding and studying. I was thrilled to meet him on a date. And then for him to invite me up was truly an amazing experience. So I went up and played a tune, Rainy Night in Georgia, which I knew. So I played it just like the record. I think it might be Purdy or Ray Lucas, or I'm not sure who's playing on the original record, but somebody in the Atlantic stable, Grady maybe. So I said, thank you, and went to get up, and Gordon said, well, hold on, Stuffy. Stay right there. So then we played, I think we played Ode to Billy Joe.
Wow.
And I knew that one too. I love that Bobby Gentry song, it's pretty straight ahead,
Yeah.
simple. And I said, thank you again, went to get up. He said, don't go anywhere, Stuffy.
You're staying.
So then we played, I think, Signed, Sealed, and Delivered,
Wow.
which I also knew, Stevie Wonder tune.
Of course.
And this time, Gordon cut the rest of the band off and pointed to me to take a solo, but I didn't. I just kept playing time, basically.
Right.
Did a few little things here and there. And Richard T. and Gordon were like, not bad, not bad. So then I said, after that, I thought that must be it. 3 tunes, that's enough. And I went to get up and said, don't go anywhere.
Just wouldn't let you leave.
Wouldn't let me leave. So
Nice.
I played the rest of the night. I never did see who their regular drummer was. I didn't get out of there till 4 that morning.
Incredible. Incredible.
It was incredible. And I was thrilled. I was 20 something. And it was absolutely thrill of a lifetime, and at the end of the night, I thought, boy, this was really great.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. And to get to play with these guys who I've been following on records all these years was just a once in a lifetime experience. And just as I was about to go out the door, Gordon said, what are you doing tomorrow night? And I said, I'm free. So I'll be here at 10 o'clock.
Wow.
So that was the beginning.
Right.
And I think it was I don't know when the first night was, maybe a Monday night, but Gordon had an arrangement with Pat McKell and Mike McKell, to do the slow nights, quote unquote, slow nights at the club, because they had a great, your dad played there, and Chico Hamilton and Roy Haynes and Art Blakey. They had a whole jazz roster.
Yeah.
All the other days of the week.
Right.
But Gordon took, the slow nights, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I started playing with him every night. And we would do 14 nights in a row, or
incredible.
Depending on what the other bookings were.
Right. Right.
And it evolved to 14 nights in a row, maybe.
Yeah. Fantastic.
The material, Cornell had just put out this record called Teasin',
right?
Atlantic Records. So we played tunes from that. Plus we played tunes that he had played with King Curtis, like Soul Serenade. We played Earth, Wind and Fire stuff. That's the Way of the World. Richard T. always did this kind of solo of A Train and Rhapsody in Blue medley.
Yeah.
We played Eric Gale's tune, How Long Will It Last? Even before Eric Gale was in the band. We played that song. And we played some weird stuff. Basically whatever we heard on the jukebox. There was a Keith Carradine single, I think his one record called I'm Easy something, and we had an arrangement of that. And each one of these tunes, we would kind of adopt literally, make it our own, and then adapt it to that instrumentation, guitar, bass, and piano, and maybe sax. Charlie Brown was still there.
Right.
And that became the book. And we would always end the set with Isley Brothers, It's Your Thing.
Oh, wow.
Kind of, we do a truncated version of that, to end the set.
Right.
But we gradually started to incorporate more and more stuff. Love the One You're With, other Stevie Wonder tunes that he had on that album besides Signed, Sealed, and Delivered. We Can Work It Out, a Beatles tune. We tried a lot of different things, and if it worked out, and we played Sonny, Bobby Head, we played kind of whatever kind, Gordon would.
For Gordon what is? Go ahead.
Gordon was a leader and would call these tunes, and people would say, "Oh yeah."
Right.
It's in D. Okay, we can play that. Okay.
Right.
And he would change keys and set the tempo.
Yeah.
And everybody else would fall in.
Interesting.
If he didn't like the way it was going, or we played enough choruses of Sonny or something, he would break into something else, or suddenly go we're in C, he would suddenly go into A minor.
Right.
We would just sit
Right.
on the A minor for a while until something occurred to him, or or turn it into a blues, or he would point to Dupree, you know,
Right.
and that meant play Chicken Shack,
Right.
or it play some T-Bone Walker tune, you know, a honky tonk,
Right.
or
Right. I mean, for what it's worth, with the instrumentation that you guys had, you sort of, it's the perfect storm of the ultimate rhythm section, right? I mean,
it was
you know, jumping ahead in the timeline, two drummers, a bass player, two guitar players, and a keyboard player. There is hardly anything that you cannot do with that, you know, and never mind then those particular players.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and each guy, I mean, I really noticed this the first night. Each guy was very respectful of the other in terms of harmonic territory and textures and stuff. Everybody was really a good listener, you know,
Yeah.
in the best sense of the word. Nobody was there to show off their chops,
Right.
or to play anything that wasn't groovy, you know, wasn't
Right.
melodic and fun to play,
Right.
and enjoyable for the audience too.
I mean,
And so,
that's a big part. That is a huge part, because after all, like, we're here to entertain. Let's
exactly,
not forget that, you know. And it
exactly,
seems that with the leadership of Gordon Edwards, that was sort of the prime directive.
there was.
You know, that at least from what I can get out of these conversations, you know.
No, you're exactly right. That was the prime directive. We're there to entertain or
Mm,
to accompany a singer. You know, at
yeah.
that time, Esther Marrow,
Right.
and would do her set, you know, which was 3 or 4 or 5 tunes, depending, and she'd go off, you know, and we'd be on our own
Right.
to do the rest of the set. And then I think she only did 1 or 2 shows a night, but we probably played 4 or 5 sets a night,
Wow.
you know, and stretched out. And over the weeks and months, you know, the band really evolved to all these head arrangements.
Right.
Uh, People sort of knew where things were going to happen. That's guitar solo. That's a breakdown for Richard. He's going to do his gospel thing.
Mm.
We'll play a ballad, whatever that might be. We played Ashford and Simpson tunes, you know,
Of
Ain't No
course.
Mountain Enough. Uh,
No, I mean, fantastic. This is already fascinating already, because that's you know, a point of view, an experience that was entirely unique to you. I mean, nobody on this planet had that experience. You know, going into the club and just not being able to leave for the next whatever it was, 4 or 5 hours.
it was amazing. And I was living on the Bowery and Grand Street, so it
Right.
was you know, it was like another land, going to
Right.
another land with these guys.
Yeah.
They came down to hang with me a couple of times and saw where I lived and said, how could you live here? You know, Bowery. But that was the ideal spot for me in terms of being able to practice all the time, which is what I was really doing. You know,
Yeah.
I had a drum booth, a soundproof room, and that's where I spent most of my days practicing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I had an acoustic piano. Don Grolnick lived
Of course.
downstairs for a while, and then he sold his loft to Mike Brecker. Mike Brecker moved in.
Mm.
So that building was filled with music all the time, which was great.
Just to sidestep for a second, was that connection to Grolnick and Brecker, did that come in handy when with the formation of the Brecker brothers and that particular band?
Exactly. Don, before he lived in that loft, we all lived in this building on Carmine Street. Will lived on the bottom floor. I lived on the 3rd floor. Don lived on the 4th floor. Steve Kahn lived in the neighborhood.
Incredible.
And we would rehearse at Don's. I mean, really elbow to elbow. It was a studio apartment.
Right.
And we actually played gigs as the Carmine Street Band, me and Will and Don and Steve Kahn at McKell's.
Mm.
Um, and then Mike and Randy started to come over, and Randy was friends with Sanborn from jazz camp. So Mike and Randy and Sanborn came over. Then it was really crowded. And
Mm.
that was the nexus. That was the beginning of the Brecker Brothers.
Yeah, 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 for sure. All right. Well, I mean, let's just, go back to stuff because
Okay.
there's so much to talk about with your career. That's incredible, right? This is an incredible span of a career, an incredible body of work. I highly recommend whoever is watching this, whoever is listening to this, check out Chris Parker's discography because you will blow your top. It is incredible. All right. Um, let's
I've
go
been
back. Say again. Sorry.
very fortunate, and I'm very
Yeah.
grateful for all the great musicians that I've had the opportunity to play with. It's been
Yeah.
a full life.
Yeah, for sure. Now let me ask you a specific question to the again to the instrumentation of the band. Um, I'm a bass player. One of my favorite things in the world is playing with a drummer and a percussion player. Right. Basically, I see it almost as two drummers. Right.
Yeah,
Um, with stuff you had two drummers. Right. You and Steve Gadd. What was the communication like, if there was any? Like, did you guys figure out parts? Was it more of a free flowing kind of thing? Like, how did you
totally,
how did you make it happen? Say again.
totally free flowing.
Right.
We never ever discussed, well, I'm going to play acrostic here, and when you go to the bell of the cymbal, I'll go back to 16th notes on the hi-hat. We never discussed a single thing
Mm,
about what we were going to play. It evolved completely organically.
mm,
Again, because everybody was such a good listener.
yeah. Yeah.
I consider myself a good listener, and to make something almost symphonic or orchestral with that instrumentation was the unspoken aim,
Yeah.
to make that instrumentation really work as across the board, all the spectrum, all the textures and the
Mm,
total spectrum and range of the instruments
yeah. 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 Yeah.
with whoever was playing the melody, whoever was playing, what might have been horn parts on a Earth, Wind and Fire record, or vocals on a Stephen Stills record, or
Right.
um, depending on what song we were playing, everybody would adapt
Right.
and try to play the right part, and
Right.
the listening was the biggest part of that.
That is incredible. I mean, that's a huge, huge insight and a huge takeaway from your experience. And I am so glad that you're sharing this with everyone. This is amazing. Because I mean, here's the thing: like, listening is sort of the silent partner of every musician. That's the thing that we need to do, almost like breathing air, at least
Yep.
in my opinion, right? So
Yep.
to have someone of your status bring it up, and not only for yourself, but to say that this entire band was really good at listening. And what you just um what you just exemplified with horn parts and melodies and all of that derives directly from the art of listening and being able
Right.
to hear all these parts, of course, then find them on the instrument and whatnot. I mean, that is important
Yeah.
too. But to be open enough is incredible, and it's an incredible insight that you're sharing here.
The more practical application is what Gordon always used to say: you make more money playing less notes.
Wow, check that out. Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And I mean, the thing is also that when Gordon plays two notes, it has the impact of 100.
Right.
That's Gordon.
And he leaves room for the left hand of the piano, whether it's Richard T or somebody else, and he
Right.
leaves room for two guitar players to play in their register comfortably.
Yeah.
And he locks in with the drummers.
Right.
That's or we lock in with him.
Right.
We defer to him. Let me get that straight.
I like that way. But all right, so let's jump ahead. The band is established now, right? You got this run of gigs at Mikkel's. I take it, and of course I was not there, but I take it that there's a certain notoriety forming. People are coming to hear the band and all of that. And now, obviously, since all of you were also recording musicians, recording performers, you get called to do these different recording dates with different artists. Not, and this is an important point that I would like to point out for the audience, not as the entire band, but sometimes just two of you, sometimes three of you.
Right.
Now, when you find these recordings, what did I say earlier? Me and Julio down by the schoolyard, right? Stuff and sounds like that. Quincy Jones record, right?
Right.
The fascinating thing, I mean, essentially, you could even say the soundtrack for The Wiz is somewhat of a stuff record because
Yeah.
Gad is in there and Richard T is in there and Eric Gale is in there. So
I'm in
my,
there too.
you're in there as well. So my point being that the minute two or three of you show up on a session, it sounds like a stuff record. And that that is an incredible accomplishment, right? It seems to me as if, and I don't know that, of course, that you guys were sought out for a sound. And I was wondering, what is your take on that? Why did it sound? Why were these personalities so strong that they showed up even when the whole band was not together?
The only thing I can think of is that our perception of time, how each one of the six guys felt the time.
Right.
Not necessarily metronomic, maybe a little behind the metronome, but it was a very firm belief in that concept of time.
Right.
And the additional concepts of, not playing too much, being the right kind of accompanist for a vocalist or a horn player,
Right.
or an orchestra, whoever it was. We had a philosophy of unspoken philosophy of doing the right thing for the whoever we were backing up, the singer, the horn player, or ourselves.
Right.
So the reason, even if there's only two members, could be that, the concept of time and that unspoken philosophy.
Right.
But I agree with you. There are a lot of cases, whether it was Tom Scott taking Steve and Richard and Eric Gale, or Paul Simon taking Steve and Richard and Eric Gale,
Right.
or Lou Rawls taking me and Richard with a different place player, or Nick and Val taking Richard and Steve, but using Anthony Jackson on bass.
Right.
Different people had different, it's like horse owners, horse racers. They want to put this jockey with this horse to see if they can get another winner,
Right. Right.
And it's always a gamble.
Right.
But whoever the producer was or whoever the artist was would come to Mikkel's and get a vibe. I like this guy and this guy. Let's put this guy and this guy together with this singer or with this horn player, and maybe we'll get a winner. Whether it was Grover Washington or Randy Crawford.
Right.
So many different folks that we worked with in a broken up format. Joe Cocker, we went on the road with.
I was just gonna mention that tour, yeah, because you guys did go out on the road. Like, it was not only it wasn't only studio work. It was also going out on the road, i.e. Joe Cocker's tour.
Yep. And we did other gigs, even though we were at Mikkel's, 5 nights a week. We did gigs like we would go out to Rikers Island and play for the prison population. We would do private parties. We would do, we did gigs at the Bottom Line when the Bottom Line was around. we played in different places, but McKell's was definitely home base and where we felt the most comfortable. That always felt like home. I
Yeah.
mean, because it's where the genesis of the band really happened.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, well, I mean, that is a great takeaway. You know that the same idea of time, where to put the beat, where to put the groove. You know, the unspoken philosophy of of not overplaying or playing what's right for the song, for the artist, for the leader, whoever that might be. You know, the incredible adherence to listening, like those are all takeaways, and the only reason why I'm repeating these is so the audience can sort of get an idea of what it is that we're talking about, you know.
Yeah.
The lastly, one thing that I wanted to bring up was and this somewhat on a personal note, because your band Tofi and the Pussycats, when I moved to the city in '96, and that was one of the bands that I followed religiously. I mean, everywhere from the Metropolitan Cafe to it 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 is, again, it's too early, so my brain is not really working.
I'm sorry.
but
Well,
but I distinctly remember the Metropolitan Cafe, also because that was, I might be wrong in this, but that was one of Ralph McDonald's last bands, right?
yeah,
Um,
we played
and sorry,
a
go
place
ahead, go ahead.
Canal Street called the Canal Room.
Canal
That might,
Room, yeah, yeah, definitely the Canal Room, yeah.
yeah,
Um, and you know, meeting him in realizing like the amount of music that came out of this one person was incredible. And
and compositions. You know, the tunes that Ralph and Bill Eaton and Bill
yeah,
Salter wrote together. It's an
yeah,
amazing body of work.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So my question or my thought was, you know, let's talk about Tofi and the Pussycats, because it seemed to me in the audience now, that's how the music was supposed to sound. Like when you heard just the two of us, that was the version. Like we all play just the two of us a lot, you know, be
Right.
it in, it doesn't matter in what setting. But when I heard you guys play it, I was like, okay, this is how it's supposed to go. So take us through Tofi and the Pussycats, take us through like Ralph McDonald, all of that influence that obviously came from stuff and went into that particular band.
Well, Ralph McDonald, I mean, among the other guys that I worshiped uh, coming up, you know, he was on all those records too with
Yeah,
Purdy and Richard T,
yeah,
Cornell Dupree, and Eric Gale. So I knew about Ralph McDonald before ever meeting him.
mm,
And he would come up to McKell's and sit in and just bring a cowbell
right,
or a tambourine and something. And I was always in awe of what he played, how he played it, and how it made the groove lock.
yeah,
There's no other word to describe it. You know,
yeah,
he would just write notes at the right time. And again, it's that unspoken philosophy of playing the right thing at the right time and not being pushy about it
yeah,
or arrogant about it. So in the back of my mind, when stuff started, I mean, when stuff sort of stopped doing gigs together because of all these other commitments, early 80s or something, I wanted to do something where I had Ralph McDonald in the band.
right,
And Will and I had been friends from Brecker Brothers and other projects that we always did. So that was the beginning. Cliff Carter, great keyboard
yeah,
player, you know, that I've known for years. And sort of a reaction to having played with Eric and Cornell for all those years, I couldn't think of a guitar player that I would
mm,
want in the band
that's
because
deep.
I was so enamored
Yeah,
of Eric and Cornell and the way they play. And it's really hard to come up with a guitar. There are lots of good guitar players, but it's hard to come up with one at that time that I
yeah,
would say, let's get this guy in the band. Trope was close.
right, right,
Because I love the way he plays.
yeah,
But I wanted to put a band together that featured keyboard and tenor. Dave Mann was great,
yeah,
and give more space for Will to play and for me and Ralph to
yeah,
really play some different kinds of grooves.
right,
And whether it was my tunes that I brought in or something that we picked Uh, we played some, is it Jocko's tune, Havona?
Yeah,
Jocko,
for sure.
but a Chick Corea tune. We played, we used to play Rockin' and Rhythm, Duke
Mm.
Ellington, that I always loved. So I kind of picked the book and wanted to see what I could make happen with those players. And
Yeah.
that was the beginning of Tofi and the Pussycats. We're actually doing a gig uh,
Yeah,
December
please promote. Let the
yeah,
people know. This is awesome.
7th at the Sugar Bar. We're doing a Tofi and the Pussycats kind of reunion.
Oh, check that out. What's the
Uh,
date again?
December 7th
December 7th. Okay.
at the Sugar Bar
Yeah,
on 72nd Street between West End and Broadway.
I'll be there.
Nick and Val, Ashford and Simpson's place.
Yeah.
So if you're come by.
Oh, hell yeah.
Um, I've got new tunes that I've written over the last 2 years, and I spoke to Dave Mann. He's got new stuff, and Ralph, of course, won't be with us. He'll be
Yeah.
with us in spirit.
Yeah.
But we've got a percussionist who plays with Ricky Martin, Paolo Spagnaro,
Okay.
who's going to join us from Miami. And Rob Mounsey is going to be playing keyboards because he and Valerie have been working together.
Right.
So looking forward to it.
Oh, that's fantastic. December 6th, December 7th. I'll make sure to put that into the description of the interview, of the video.
All right.
Yeah, most definitely. So, I mean, Chris, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your time with us and all of that. I know that there's also, I would like to kind of go into what you're doing now. I know there's a trio that you have with, I believe, a Japanese piano player and Will Lee on the bass. But give us, or
The Kyoko Oyobe
yeah,
is the pianist, and Amin Salim,
Amin Salim. Okay,
yeah, is the bass player. I just mastered the new CD, and it'll
okay,
be out probably before Thanksgiving. I'm
okay,
just kind of the graphic designer to finish up things. It'll be a physical CD, but mainly it's going to be a USB drive in a cassette housing,
wow,
something disc makers, so you can just plug it right into your computer, and that'll have the liner notes and song credits and all that stuff. But this is
nice,
all new material that
yeah,
I've written
yeah.
in the last couple of years, except for we do one monk song and one Polish folk song that I arranged.
Right.
I'll get you a copy as soon as it's ready.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I'll also put up links to your website or to your social media sites,
Yeah.
so people can follow you and check out where you are and what you're putting out. Because there's a lot. You manage to stay consistently busy, and that I find also fascinating. And I definitely see sort of an influence from the Stuff days where you just start working and you basically don't stop. Is that a correct estimation?
Yes.
Oh, check that out.
There's always new music to play. There's always great musicians to rise to their level
Yeah,
of playing. Constantly doing that. Kyoko and Amin, are youngsters.
yeah,
They're early 30s, mid 30s, something like that, and they've got a whole different focus. A whole different set of ears. They've played a lot more recent music, and it's great to interact with them. I really enjoy playing with them both.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. All right. Well, listen, Chris Parker, I once again, I'm so grateful that you made the time today.
Great. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope we get to in person. And
both. Sorry, say that again.
I hope we get to meet in person at some point and do some playing. Bass and drums is what's happening.
Yeah, you can't leave it at a better note than that. Bass and drum is what's happening. All right, Chris Parker, thanks so much for being here today, and I hope to I'll at the latest I'll see you December 7th.
Excellent, great.
Cool. All right.
Look forward to it.
All right.
All right.